Call this meeting to order. Committee members are present. When I read your name, just please say aye. Jeannie Herron.
Aye.
Carla Pope.
Here.
Debbie Davis.
Aye.
Haley Zelinka.
Aye.
Dr. Caldwell.
Aye.
Kim Haney.
Aye.
Beth Casey. Myself. First order is acceptance of the minutes from July 12th meeting. I need a motion.
I move that we accept the minutes.
Second.
I did.
Had a motion and a second. Number 5, committee, state of officers, Haley Zelinka chair, Kim Haney co-chair, and Jeannie Herron recording secretary. What I'd like to do is pass this right now, and we'll come up next meeting and I'd like to just pass it if I can get a motion to pass.
I make a motion to accept these people as these officers.
That's fine. What I'm asking to do is pass number 5 to the
To
next
defer it.
agenda.
Defer,
Yeah.
okay. I'll make a motion to defer number 5.
I get a second.
I'll second.
Okay. Haley, introduction to more board of trustees and CEO in attendance.
Yes, after our meeting last week, as promised, I reported back to the Memorial Board of Trustees. And in attendance today is the Vice Chair, Mr. Bob Sawyer. He's sitting in the front in his Mississippi State shirt. And
I thought that was a Southern shirt, I'm sorry.
And our CEO and President, Mr. Kent Nico, 2 seats behind him. They are here in attendance today.
Thank y'all for being here. Okay, I think this was something that everybody kind of thought about, but a discussion on going from weekly meetings to bi-monthly meetings. And I'll leave that on the floor for discussion. So, anybody want to talk about the pros and cons of meeting every Friday or bi-weekly or bi-monthly?
I know that, oh, sorry, go ahead. I know that originally when we started this a few months ago, that the discussion was that we didn't want it to fall by the wayside, so we didn't want to kind of lose traction. But at this point, I don't have any objection to moving it. I think that was kind of something that we were discussing before, as long as we're continuing to make progress and move, and communication has already improved. So I do think that, there would be no problem in twice a month, unless you all disagree.
No, I will make a motion to move the meetings to bi-monthly. With that said, is the agenda can be a full agenda, and we can address that agenda at that time. If there's anything that needs to come up, that needs to be discussed, we can have a special call meeting to discuss those facts or circumstances that need to be discussed. But I will make a motion to go bi-monthly on the meetings.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Report memorials, numbers of CPS reports at Board of Supervisors meeting. That's open for discussion.
So, I'll read that. So, last week, I gave, or I guess I verbally provided you all with the number of reported cases that Memorial had provided for this year, 2024. And since then, I've spoken with Cindy. She was our Director of Care Coordination and Social Services, and she pulled the data for 2020 through 2024?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, so that should say 2020 through 2024. So she's pulled that, and I can defer to her on any of the numbers, but if I recall last week, Cindy, we said 87 for this year, but you've updated that to present, and what is that number now? 113 this calendar year.
Through yesterday.
Through yesterday. Any discussion on that?
Was there, I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you said, the very last part of what you said, I'm sorry, I was distracted.
Just, we updated, she updated it last week, re-reported, and I think, I don't know what the date went through, Cindy, on the graph that we had last.
It was through the end of June.
So now this one, the recent number, she just reported the 113
Mhm.
was to today.
So out of that 113, I think there was discussion that at some point we were going to report that to the Board of Supervisors at their meeting, or I think we discussed that. I can't remember at what meeting, but
Yeah, I think there was some discussion that that would be something that routinely, when we report on, however often the board asks us to do that, that we report that at that time when we provide our committee report.
right. Do you have any information as far as out of the 113, of what's happened to those children at all?
You mean what's happened after we report it?
I think that's the key.
Well, and, you know, I spoke with Cindy about, I know you all had questions about the nature of the report.
Right.
And that would be something that potentially the Board of Supervisors may ask is, what is the nature of these reports? And that's something that we talked about. Maybe that would be a cumbersome task, I
I was
think,
gonna
at this point. But
Right.
we could probably pull that eventually, and we can work with CPS and with Youth Court to help out.
Thank you.
Crazy question, but Judge, can the board ask that question?
You mean what happened to the child?
The Board of Supervisors, can they ask that question?
No, and that goes to what I'm asking for
Got it.
today.
That's what I was thinking as well.
Yeah, it's, unless you know the youth court laws, you really don't understand that some of it just is not common sense. And that's what I'm trying to straighten up with some of this legislation.
Any further discussion?
Can you report it to the cities as well?
Report
The numbers?
just
Yeah,
the
the
report.
You know, I think that just the county, you know, is one entity. You know, you've got a lot of city halls that we cover. And I think they should all know and be aware of this.
These are only Memorial's numbers, these aren't all the other cities.
But that's
or their
shocking.
If
hospitals.
that's, Memorial addresses, 4 cities,
Yeah.
you know, within the county, so I think that's a good point, and, that's something that as we move forward, we can formulate some type of plan to, when those numbers are generated, so they go out to every law enforcement agency, and then every city hall, and everybody will have.
Is it like a confidentiality violation to report numbers, like on our Blue Ribbon Committee website?
We report COVID.
I wouldn't think that.
I mean, unless you
I
interrupt
don't
me if I'm
think
wrong.
just
I-
reporting numbers.
Right,
Numbers
all I'm
is-
speaking
Actually,
is
you
to are
can
the
get
numbers
that
of reports.
information. It's supposed
Right.
to be
Public.
so public, so what you could consider would be to consolidate it all so that it's broken on
You're
just one
kind of
page.
splitting hairs on
Because it is,
reporting. You can report numbers all you want to, what
Right.
you can't report is what happens after that case is open. So
Right.
that's where a lot of people get in trouble.
That's what we need to change.
well, they could report of the number of children that were reported, this many were removed from their families.
I don't think
It
you
could
can
give
report
you
that.
that number.
I don't think you can do that either.
Sure you can. Why can't you?
Publicly?
Yeah, there's no name. The confidentiality comes into releasing information, personal information, not numbers. Any identifiable, you can't do any of that. But a number is a number. And a number would be also reportable too. This is all information that you eventually gets to, the Division of Family and Children's Services. They keep track of the number of kids that go into foster care.
But they would
Because
have
of
to-
monies, it's federal monies.
But they would have to report it.
Yeah, well, you would have to consolidate that down, but,
Just because a
That's
child is
technically
removed
different.
doesn't mean it's removed for very long. So the people seeing those numbers and they have, oh, this many children were removed, they're thinking permanently or long term, it may not be.
They don't
Well,
understand.
that's where maybe
From
education.
I guess from my standpoint, and please correct me if I'm out of line, but from a law enforcement standpoint, when you take a child and there's paperwork that's generated. So somebody can, if those numbers are put out, and those, we just took a child last night, or CPS took a child last night, or whatever it may be, and we report that, then somebody does a little bit of investigation into the computer screen at the jail, they can figure that out. And just like she was just saying,
But who has access? Aren't the police?
everybody,
the ones
public
that have-
does, everything,
The
whole
public
public
has
does.
access.
So then you're, just like she said, you're
Assuming
misleading
someone-
information if they were gone, if they were taken for 24 hours, or if they were taken for 4 hours.
Right, but they may not be arrested.
Right, so
So, I mean,
it's
that's-
a lot of misleading information, that's why I would say it doesn't need to be reported at all. It needs to be, once the case is completed, then you can report what you want to report. I mean, and once it's public knowledge, but, and a lot of the findings and facts at the end of the cases are not. I mean, is that correct? So there's a lot of things you can't report.
And that's why I want the legislation changed.
It's always been and I'll just give you an explanation, it's always been a big, huge burden on law enforcement that if you make a case, the press wants to know about the case. So you can only give them particulars about the case. So then they hound you for 2 weeks wanting to know everything about this case, and you can't physically give them the information because it's gonna hurt the case in the long run when it goes to trial. So if you divulge all this information up front and say this happened, that happened, there was 20 pounds of weed or 10 pounds of fentanyl, when that goes to trial, a defense attorney is gonna use that against you because you reported that information up front. So it's hard for us to report anything. We try to keep, and the public thinks that we're trying to hide stuff. We're not. We're trying to protect the case, so when it goes to trial, it will be a good case. I mean, that's all there is to it. So I don't, as far as the reporting, I don't know what we can and cannot report. Valerie?
Reporting the numbers for the reports that Memorial calls in, that obviously, yes, like General Counsel said, there's nothing wrong with reporting the numbers of reports. But would that just be painting a picture for the community for awareness of saying, this is how many is coming from the hospital? Because Ms. Haney, is that right? She was saying about information being misleading. To put the numbers of, hey, there's 113 reports, but only this % went into custody, I don't want the community who is unaware of how child welfare works in that system to think that all 113 need to be coming in custody and we're not doing enough. And so I just was trying to figure out what picture is trying to be conveyed to the community with reporting all of that, I guess.
Judge, do you have anything further?
Yeah,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
asked to be on the agenda today.
Yes, ma'am.
One of the things can everybody hear me? Yeah, okay. One of the things I distributed, I understand impetus for the committee was the death of one of the deaths of the four-month-old. It was just so egregious. So one of the things I printed and passed around was the newspaper article, and I highlighted the part that said, CPS Clifton said, and Clifton was the investigator, said did not know the couple's new address because they moved around to avoid CPS workers. And so I thought about this long and hard, and we have discussed it informally, and so I'm proposing a legislative change, and I hope the committee will adopt it and support it. And it's called a Baby DJ's Law. And what it says is when the Department of Child Protective Services and/or a youth court has received a credible report of serious child abuse and/or neglect and/or exploitation, and the department and/or youth court cannot locate the child within blank hours, and I'll let that blank for the committee to discuss. An alert is to be issued to all media outlets, including social media and all law enforcement agencies, naming the child and describing the child by age and race, posting a picture of the child if one is available, and naming the parents and the last known location of the child, seeking help from the public in locating the child. A telephone number to call is to be provided with the Baby DJ alert. This is much like an Amber Alert. And I just want to say, could this child have been saved if such a law had been passed? So I don't know, it would have to be a legislative change, but if a 4-month-old in this condition, an alert can be not issued for this baby and for a child that's been kidnapped, I don't get it.
How is, so a report's been submitted,
A serious,
a serious,
a
abuse.
credible report, like
Right.
from the hospital.
and so how much time between when the report has occurred and then we know that CPS or youth court has it, then how much time before, is CPS and youth court the ones that say, look, we've tried for the last 36 hours to locate this child, we can't find them, so let's
No.
issue the alert. Who targets
No.
the alert, I guess, is what I'm
Okay, when the
asking.
report comes from the hospital to CPS, a serious report,
Mhm.
CPS has a certain amount of time to try and locate the child, okay? And that's what I'm saying, if they can't locate it within 8, whatever hours is reasonable, then much like an Amber Alert goes out. But the difference is, it's got to name the child, name the parents, the last location. That's where it requires a legislative change because of confidentiality. But I think the public would be appalled if they think such an alert can't go out.
Judge, if you don't mind, who determines whether or not it's a serious, and how is that defined? Is it life-threatening? Is it?
Well, y'all work on, it's a good point. This is just your
And where does
framework.
law enforcement come in?
And would you put a time limit for child protection to make an effort to report this?
No,
If
to
they-
make an effort to locate the child.
And if they have a time limit to do it within that time limit, if it's not done, then that alarm goes off.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it.
May I ask a question here? Bill Alexander, what authority does the Amber Alert come under that will release the picture in the name of a child that's under 18?
It goes through the highway patrol, doesn't it, Sheriff?
For an Amber Alert, you're through the state.
Yeah,
Yes.
highway patrol.
So there is a way that an underage child can be reported in the media.
No, it was
It's not.
The only
No.
way that to my knowledge, the only way that a child can be reported, to law enforcement as missing or abducted or anything like that is through law enforcement.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's through, NCIC system that every law enforcement agency has. So if it happens down here, then they would put out a District 8 report, so it would go to every agency south of south of Hattiesburg.
So this is the same, except it's for a suspected neglected or abused child, instead of
Is there-
exploitation.
Is there anything that CPS has right now online that is equal to this, or?
We have Amber Alert. And if we're talking about legislation, just the first thing that popped in my head, I hadn't really thought about it. Because I saw this on the agenda last week, but, when an Amber Alert goes out, prior to that alert, the police investigate, they find out that the child has been abducted and they know that this has happened. My concern would be if we're basing this alert on allegations, my concern would be setting the agency up for a defamation suit. So there would have to be some sort of immunity in there.
We'll give them immunity. I mean,
That's just my.
I'm fine with that, but the fact that the report, this child died at 4 months, CPS couldn't locate it, why aren't we doing something? Why aren't we thinking
So-
outside the box?
If the social worker comes to the judge, the youth court judge, and says, I cannot locate this child, presents their evidence, just like an emergency is held in chancery, and they issue an order saying alert, the sheriff's department, so they continue this on media or whoever, so that there is a step in there that protects the social worker and has a judge making a determination as to whether or
That's
not
a
this
good
is
idea.
serious.
That's a good idea.
It's like a probable cause.
Like a probable cause.
Yeah, you used to issue pickup orders.
It's like a pickup order.
It's pickup.
So basically, an affidavit would need to be signed before it would have to go out.
Yes, I think this is great discussion, because we need to work through the the mechanics of it, and then we need to invite y'all need to invite legislators. But again, when you look at the facts of baby DJ, and he was 4 months old, and he died, maybe because CPS couldn't locate him, are we just gonna walk away and say, well, we
I
couldn't look?
agree, I totally agree.
Well,
How
and
much
we
time
would need
it
to
is since
anticipate
they-
not just timing of the report to the attempt to locate, because there are instances where there might be contact once, but like these people have said, they move around, so you might see them 1 month, but the next time you go to check up, it may be months after initial report was made, but then they're moving around.
Well, this addresses, if it can't be located, then the alert goes out.
Let me back up a little bit, just to make sure everybody's on the same sheet of music, I don't want anybody confused, but what we're talking about is the child that is in the hospital, he is tested positive for fentanyl, for whatever drugs he's tested positive for. Parents take the child and leave with it. CPS is contacted, CPS goes out, can't find the child. That's where we're at right now.
And then the alert goes out.
Okay, no, well, we gotta back up. Your probable cause is from the hospital. That's your PC to get the whole ball thing started. So then a police report has to be generated. So once the probable cause is met, police report is generated, that takes it off CPS's back. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that gives, some coverage.
Right, so police report's done, an affidavit's signed. At that point, when an affidavit's signed, then there should be an ample amount of time for law enforcement to locate that person, whether it's 6 hours, 8 hours, whatever it needs to be, but there should be enough time to where, the intel analysts that work for each agency can go through social media. You know, if I'm looking for Joe Smith, I'm gonna look at Joe Smith's dad, his mom, his brother, his sister, his aunt, his cousin, to find Joe Smith. So let them do their job first, then it would go to an Amber Alert.
Well, that changes it because the hospital is required to report to CPS. And so CPS is the investigative agency
But
on these
here's where the
cases.
kicker is, CPS can't find them, and they didn't see the child, they weren't there.
So CPS.
So
is
your
required-
affiant is the hospital, that's your affiant.
So let me make sure I understand, does it still go to CPS and CPS still goes out?
100%.
And at the same time, y'all go out?
Same time, law
Okay.
enforcement's doing the same thing.
Good. But at the point in time y'all can't find them, then the alert goes out, naming the child, describing the child. But in other words, on these serious cases, y'all are working in conjunction at the same time?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm
I
not
can
saying this,
work on the wording.
I'm not saying it's happening now, but I'm
No,
just
it's
saying
not
it's,
happening now.
but it,
But we can work
yes,
towards
it-
that.
So CPS would contact law enforcement or Memorial?
Memorial,
Memorial.
yeah. Well, I mean, it would be in conjunction, it would be,
It would
Right,
go
they'd
out
make
at the
a
same
report to
time.
you
Ma'am,
as well as
you-
the
you would make-
mandatory report.
the hospital would make a report, a police report, and then if CPS was there, they could be part of the report or not be part of the report. But if regardless whether they're in there, a police report has to be generated.
Gotcha.
So then that police report can go back and serve as an affidavit to a judge to sign that says we need to put this person.
And that would go to youth court judge or what judge? Justice?
It would stay in justice court until it was,
Justice court. Until it's transferred.
yeah, transferred over.
May I ask you a question? When the hospital reports to CPS, the child is gone, do they automatically report to the police department
No.
to come?
That's a better question for them, I don't.
Yeah.
No, historically, that's not the process. We would just report to CPS, simultaneously send the 440 to youth court, and then if there was a lapse in time, we've been kind of knocking around some ideas. Most recently, our policy is, we don't get some sort of acknowledgement response back, we call law enforcement. But generally speaking, no, we go straight to CPS.
Can I work on this based upon what the sheriff has recommended?
I'll give you mine, cause I got 100 notes on here. so
I do have
Can
a
I-
question.
can I
Yes,
work
ma'am,
on
I'll
it
give
for
this to you.
Okay.
What's the current procedure for CPS? Y'all get a case, you go out, you have an address, you can't find them. what's,
And the next
then
step.
what?
We have a couple of different entities. We reach out to youth court to utilize their TLO service. We also reach out to law enforcement. And then we also have a diligent search service within our agency as well. So we try to utilize all three of those entities to find next of kin, old phone numbers, those sort of things. Old
Is
addresses.
it part of the policies and procedures that says if you can't find a child, you shall do A, B, C? Or is it just kind of like, this is just kind of what we do on every case?
No, our diligent search efforts is part of our policy.
But it doesn't include an alert.
Right.
So,
It does-
Right.
if the parents jump to the state of Louisiana, they go over state lines, and that then gets moved to another state's CPS, correct? What is the lag time between this county and the CPS of another county, a parish in Louisiana, having any contact?
Let me tell you how ridiculous it gets, Kim. I've been in these talks before. Well, the abuse occurred here, so you have jurisdiction. Well, you've got the child, so the child's here, you have jurisdiction. I mean, I've heard that, I don't know how many times.
So if we did what you're suggesting and the way that the sheriff here was talking about, then everybody would get this notification and it could go across the state line.
Yeah, law enforcement works great. across
We
the
have,
line.
we have enough,
Yeah, yeah.
I have readers all over Harrison County. So if I go to Slidell and they wanna know I went to Slidell, then they know I went to Slidell. So it's easy for law enforcement to track a vehicle now. And we're in conjunction with Alabama and Louisiana, so anything that crosses, we know where it's going. They can track just as easy as we can track. So it's,
So if an order goes out, let's say the alert goes out, does that alert also contain authority for law enforcement
That's the
to
question.
take the person into custody?
that's the question.
To take the
because there is
missing
no-
person into custody, because you can alert all day long.
There is no warrant, and that's what we all go by. There is no NCIC entry, so there is no warrant. It's just an affidavit. So it would have to be something that would give, and this is,
It's
I'm
not
the,
taking
I'm
a
just the
person.
devil's advocate reading into this.
Right,
If
right.
I send a law enforcement, sees a car, and it comes back under this alert system, and they stop this car, there's no warrant for his arrest. All they are is looking for the child. They're trying to physically put hands on the child. He walks up to the car, the driver, or the dad, or the mom, or whoever's in the car, starts shooting at law enforcement. Then it turns into a battle, a gun battle. And you have dead people, you have somebody that, it's gonna happen. So at that point in time, where does the jurisdiction fall and where does the liability fall?
So if you have the order to pick up the child,
So
That's
there
what
need-
I'm saying,
there
does
needs
the
to be
alert
something stronger
contain
in
a
there.
pickup for the
Okay,
child?
I need to work on it, but y'all have great ideas, and
Mhm.
I'll report back at the next meeting, because these are, the mechanics of this needs to be worked on, but do y'all like the idea?
Yes, absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely.
Could I ask one
Much
other
needed.
thing, when you issue it, this alert, okay, can it also go to Crime Stoppers so that they can throw out some cash to be able to offer rewards for their friends who might know where they're at?
After a certain period of time, I'd say yes. I know that's sad to say, but they're not gonna do it till after a certain amount of time has passed.
Okay, my next suggestion is, I hope the hospital supports me on this, absolute immunity for hospitals, physicians, social workers within the hospital, and attorneys for any hospital making reports to CPS of allegations of abuse or neglect. Absolute immunity.
I think that already
You and our
exists.
folks already have that.
I don't know, does it extend to, attorneys making reports within the hospital?
If it's a
Yes,
credible
as long-
report, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So it's not qualified immunity?
No, there's a HIPAA exception to that for sure.
Okay, good. Okay, the next thing is what somebody was talking about earlier. Reports to the hotline of allegations of abuse, neglect, or exploitation can be anonymous. Everybody knows that. However, any reporter that makes a report and provides their name, cell phone number, and address may obtain from the department what writing, the department recommended after the investigation is complete, and what action was taken by youth court. In other words, the way this works, a report goes to the hotline. CPS investigates it. They complete their investigation and they give it to youth court. They make a recommendation to youth court and youth court enters an order. Right now, you have no ability to find out what happened on that case.
Judge, may I? The only real problem that I have and my concern with this, and I love the idea, but having any reporter, okay, where anyone decides to call, and you don't have the substantiated at that point, but even after you do, you're giving out too much information. So even if they just called them back and said, action was taken, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, you haven't really given them any confidential information, but you have affirmed, yes.
But nobody can, I made a report of a 6-month-old a few weeks ago. I have no ability to find out what happened on the hotline report I made.
You might have to change any reporter to like certain people.
Okay, y'all talk
Because
about it.
otherwise it's gonna be just, Joe Blow neighbor
Okay,
might be.
I
able
mean,
to
I
get
know for our
personal
purposes,
information.
what do y'all want
Dr. Caldwell and I would love to be able to write that because that protects her and her medical record. When she is charged with safely discharging a child and she can't discharge until there is a safe discharge plan. And when she's calling me and saying, I can't agree that there is a safe one, but I'm being told that there is one, that would be something that maybe she could be one of those special category of reporters where it's a medical professional.
Well, did you want to say when a professional and identify the professional categories makes a report?
You could specify mandated report.
That's a great idea.
Mandated, yeah.
Okay, when a
Possible.
mandated reporter makes a report, they have the right to find out what action was taken by CPS and what action was taken by youth court.
Now, how that falls for our hospital, because again, we go through our social services. So I don't make the report
Well,
myself, and social work does.
services.
Can I still
Mandatory.
call, I guess, and find out?
She could call and find out,
She
she's
could
a
call and find out,
mandated
yeah.
reporter. I like that even better, because then you're not swamped with the neighbor.
I think we need to pull that statute, because I'm pretty sure everyone with any reasonable doubt to think there's a child is a mandated reporter.
Correct.
So that will be anybody that makes a report and has knowledge is a mandated, not officials, hospital.
Well, then let's just say,
There's certain professions that have it's on
I
the
think-
440, it's on there who the mandated reporters are.
But I
And
think
it's
the
several,
statute, the catch-all, and that's why I'm saying probably needs to be pulled, is because the catch-all it lists specific professions and individuals, and it says, and then the catch-all is any individual with suspicion of someone being abused.
So if you took the term and defined it.
well, let me just define the
The statute's
category.
gonna put it
just
up.
define it.
I'll just,
Define who the
position,
mandated reporters are. It's my understanding it was pretty,
specific.
I mean,
but
yeah, in
can
other
change
words,
that
Joe
to-
Schmo down the street who sees something that's not necessarily.
A mandated
To
reporter.
report.
Yeah, well, I guess what she's saying is that technically they are, if you see something that's wrong, you're supposed to do it, and if you don't, you may be charged as well for neglecting to
Like if
report
I
them.
if I
That's
live
how
next
it
door to
works.
somebody and I
Yeah.
see abuse, and it's reasonable that I've seen abuse, then I would have to report it, correct?
That's not the way.
I think that's how you can get, other family members, the mother for protecting the father and not reporting it, that's how they get charged as well, is all what she's saying.
Do y'all want me to define the category and pick
Yeah,
out
that'd
the
probably be
report?
the easiest thing.
Okay.
And I'll send you a list of, that are generally identified in the report. And
Okay.
I'll get one.
And so that would require, again, a legislative change. Okay, so I will reword these and report back.
These are wonderful.
They are.
Thank you.
I've made many hotline calls, and it would be comforting to know, yes, CPS did, investigate it. That's all I need to know. I just want to, I just want to
No,
know.
I want to know what they recommended, I want to know what youth court intake order. Youth court intake orders can be take no action, when they take no action. bring forward, which means they're making a formal case, it's like an indictment or a petition. It can be an informal case, or it can be a monitor case. In other words, that's the action that I think the professional will wanna know.
Just so y'all know, it's, Mississippi Code section 4321-353 is talking about the mandated reporter. And the last caveat to that is public or private school employee or any other person having reasonable cause to suspect that a child is a neglected child or an abused child shall cause an oral report to be made immediately by telephone or otherwise. And then so forth.
I will specify the category and y'all change it. I'm just trying to get it down on paper for y'all.
Thank you.
Anything further, Jeff?
Did you do the last one there?
Well, I have the, well, it's really gonna be wrapped up in
Part
the,
of that one.
yeah.
Very good.
I have some more legislative changes, but I didn't want to bring up too many at one time because it's a lot to explain. And so I would hope that maybe the committee by September, we said, would be able to make the interim report to the board and then maybe get the legislators, or y'all planning to get legislators here before then?
I think from the discussions of September.
That's the last I heard. Kevin?
Yeah, if I may speak, I agree with that. I think this committee needs to reach out to a representative, perhaps Mike Thompson, to sort of get him involved early on, because you'll need someone, because I'm glad to hear Judge go this route with statutory changes, because that's the way to affect the real change. And getting someone on board earlier so he understands it, and we begin communicating it before the session. So I'll be happy to reach out to Mike to tell him about the program and have him talk to Haley or any other committee members.
And I know somebody mentioned Kevin too.
Kevin Gausser? Yeah, I believe this is Mike's Harrison County, the area would be his, this is a hospital. But Kevin's also passionate. I'll bring him in as well.
I just have a question. When you say that you have that diligent reporting, how long do you have for that diligent reporting before you issue an Amber Alert?
We're not issuing an Amber Alert.
So what happens if you can't find them with your diligent search?
We report our efforts to youth court and we close it out if we can't locate them.
You just close the case.
I can speak on youth courts, half on that too, because this is a current practice of youth court. If anything comes through from CPS that they're unable to locate, we talked about the working relationship with law enforcement and CPS in the court, that's our first question that we always ask them back. Did you notify the proper law enforcement agency and ask for assistance? So we are currently doing that, so I just wanted to speak to that.
Was that done with Baby DJ?
So what's the question?
I was wondering if that's a practice, was it not done with Baby DJ?
I'm not speaking on anything regarding that case that's been active.
So let me ask a question. Is there another status besides closed that DPS could assign a case when they can't find somebody?
Such as
I mean, closed just makes it sound like, oh, it's over and done with. But if you can't find someone, it doesn't actually mean it was resolved. It just means we couldn't find them. So is there a status other than closed? I'm looking at Robert.
Yeah, I don't know if the law authorizes anything to just close it down.
So that's.
Why would you, let me answer another question based on that. Why would you, what's the purpose of closing it?
We have a limited window within we can take action under the law, or we can't. At that point, we've lost the authority to do anything.
How long is that?
I'd have to look, I don't know that off the top of my head, but I can find that out.
That needs to be changed too.
Well, and what's worse than that is it goes into the system as unsubstantiated. I've discussed this with y'all. That's the button CPS pushes, is unsubstantiated, which means if a professional calls CPS and says, did you have a report on this child? And they say unsubstantiated, that implies to any reasonable person it was investigated and there was no evidence. But what unsubstantiated can mean, you can't find it. It doesn't mean it was investigated and there was no evidence. So that needs to be changed within their system.
It seems like their hands are a little bit tied with the laws, so maybe that's where we can help untie their hands and start helping them with the laws.
There is another disposition since then, and Judge, I don't know if you were still on the bench when that came about or not. But so we do have a third option that she's speaking of besides the substantiated and unsubstantiated. And that term is now closed without findings, meaning that we couldn't locate them, we couldn't find them. So when they search it now, you'll know that, okay, well, we looked for them previously and it was closed without any findings because we weren't able to fully assess.
So what do you do when you cannot, okay, I guess I'm really confused. The time frame, I think Sarah alluded to this, how many minutes, hours, what?
We utilize our whole 30 days to look for them and search for them.
Okay, 30 days. So if this is something that is, and you can't find, say that let's just take a child, you can't locate the parent, but you have an address, but you know that, there's somebody living there. So you can't locate, and there's a child that is in harm's way. So you have 30 days to locate this child?
Fully commit to the searching of this child, but
Okay.
within the first, I'm gonna say 48 to 72 hours, if we aren't able to find them, that's when we're utilizing those diligent efforts that I was speaking of. We're contacting youth court and asking them, will you do that TLO search? We're contacting law enforcement and saying, hey, we've been trying to search this family. Do you know if you've got any past history with them at this address and so on?
Okay, well, then that's, you just answered a huge question. Y'all don't have access to TLO. Y'all don't have access to what law enforcement has access to. Do you have state certified officers at CPS?
No.
So nobody there is state certified.
We have one account for TLO, but, yeah, I don't think so.
Can the court issue a protection order on behalf of a child?
Yes.
So if you can confirm law enforcement's they're doing due diligence, they're trying to find this child, they can't locate it, maybe tag readers catch them and confirm that these parents have crossed into Louisiana, can you issue a warrant for the violation of a protection order for that? So when you stop them, now you have where you can take them into custody, get the child, do whatever.
So I have a question for you, if you don't mind. So 45 days after, so you've got a child not found within that 30 days, you've marked the case, 45 days after that, this child shows up in an ER in Hattiesburg. Does that automatically notify y'all when that social worker, so there's
It's a different county. I mean, that's the way the system works. I mean, we have a lot of families that go out of our county to have babies, so we won't get alerted. And then we find out about them down the road, and I'm like, wow, we had no idea this mother had another child.
Here's, again, this is, you have, I'm seeing where the downfalls are. Let's just say, I'm gonna use an adult. Let's just say, Bob Smith breaks into a pawn shop in Long Beach. Bob Smith's not found, we know who he is, he's entered on NCIC. Bob Smith then goes to Pearl River County 2 weeks later and is picked up over there. Harrison County is immediately alerted that Bob Smith is now in Pearl River County.
Exactly.
So there's nothing for the juvenile system, that's what you're telling me.
Or for the state system.
Okay, so
CPS,
that's what
juveniles,
needs to be
yes.
added to the system, is CPS needs something to flag something for juveniles. There's nothing in the system that if a kid has a case that's open here and we can't find him or CPS can't find him, that child needs to be entered into the system, into the NCIC system, to where if that child goes to Tennessee and that father's arrested, it alerts on the father's name, and it hits on the child, and Tennessee's alerted to go to that child.
That's where the protection order would come in. But if he has a protection order against his child, you run his name,
That
date
makes
of
no
birth, whatever,
sense whatsoever.
it's gonna pop.
What makes less sense is that CPS and youth court are tied up to a computer system called My Kids, and I forget what
I'm
it
familiar
stands
with it.
Mississippi Youth, whatever. Now, I thought that if you go into My Kids, it is statewide, and if you put one child in, you can pick up reports from other counties.
Correct, but if that report is immediately made by a hospital, that doesn't immediately go into My Kids. It only goes into My Kids once the court receives the completed investigation. So it would be up to the state level who sees in their MACLIS system or I don't know if that we're on MACLIS, that's a CPS system. But as far as the youth court system, that's never gonna hit for us until the courts receive the investigation, receive something and it's put into that.
But CPS would have it. I
But
mean,
it's not an automatic alert like you're saying, so.
but you could go into it and, I mean, it may
Yeah,
not
you
be.
can search it.
Yeah,
You can search it and
You
find
can
it.
search My Kids. I mean, that exists now.
Can I ask on a clarification here? When the hospital informs CPS, CPS gets it and looks at it. Now, we're looking at I'm looking at only the cases that's turned over to CPS that never gets to the youth court. And the way I'm listening to that is there's two ways that would happen. One, they investigated, they saw that what they thought might have been some allegations at the hospital has been looked at and now determined that it wasn't a problem. And they can document their own files, that they could close it, that there was no problem existing there. The other one is it's turned over and they can't locate. They're still closing. There should be a step there, and that be the only one that doesn't get the youth court involved in that case since they could not locate the child. But just to close the case by one, being able to solve it, and two, they can't find the child. I think that's, to me, is a gap.
Is CPS under, crazy question, is CPS under, not DPS, not Department of Public Safety, who's CPS actually under?
We just separated it. We were under DHS, but now we're an independent agency.
Just a state agency, separate standalone state agency.
So your budget's independent, you have an independent budget?
That's right.
There are times if situations come up and they're unable to locate, we've exhausted all efforts, court side, law enforcement, youth court. We will put in what Judge Alfonso was referring to, that intake order, which is the order of the finding court action. And so we have put in there, if a new report is received from CPS, youth court is to be notified immediately. That way, if they get a report from a hospital, they go and look in My Kids, it's the last thing they'll see immediately. Okay, that court order tells me that I have to notify youth court immediately, this new report has come in. And so sometimes we have caught things like that too down the road. So we are diligent about putting that language in there,
So
just to try to catch new ones.
when CPS can't find a kid here in Harrison County, they go up to Forest County and go to that hospital. That hospital makes a report to CPS. When the CPS investigator, if I'm probably using the wrong term, gets that case, is part of their process to go into the computer system to see if that kid has been in contact with
History.
CPS at any other time?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether it's open or closed, it doesn't matter what the status of that case is, it will show.
The entire history, it should.
And that includes the entire state, or?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's actually a pretty good system, it's just that enough people aren't on it. Like chancellors, for instance, they won't give me access to My Kids.
Because it's youth court records.
You know, the isolation that youth court operates on, and I love what y'all do, I really do. I couldn't do it, I admire y'all, but then there's a huge but here. The isolation that youth court works when it comes to chancery court is so frustrating frustrating for not just the judges, but for the attorneys, because it is a system that's set alone by itself. And I understand y'all are trying to protect children, but so is everybody else that's working. And we can't seem to get information, just like Memorial can't seem to get information, the chancellors can't get information. There are so many broken steps. And I understand your frustration, y'all are doing the best you can, but the system needs fixing.
We disclose records to Chancery very often.
But I have to enter an order, and for me to enter an order, I have to have a cause number. So a file has to be created in Chancery for me to issue an order on that file to send it to youth court. And it may take, a week or two for me to get those records. I got a kid in front of me that I'm trying to make a decision on. It makes no sense that I don't have a computer, read only, don't let me edit it, just read only, that I can't look at a computer and see what that child's history is. It makes no sense. And let me tell you how, this is kind of technical, but listen to me for just a second. In some counties, you don't have a county court. Here, we have a county court, so our youth court judge is actually a county court judge, okay? In Stone County, there's no county court, so Chancery appoints an attorney to be what's called a referee. If I decided I'm gonna be the referee in Stone County, I could go to Stone County and have access to my kids, but I don't have it here in Harrison. It makes absolutely no sense. Do I wanna fire Sean Courtney, who does a wonderful job in Stone County, so I can go up there and look at my kids? Of course not. I mean, so some chancellors that do youth court work have access, the other chancellors that don't. Makes no sense. Makes absolute no sense.
But I just want to be clear with everybody, that's not CPS policy, that's the state law. I mean, that's how the law as it is.
But if I'm not,
operates.
what is accurate, I could go to Stone County, and since I'm the referee, I could be on my kids.
Yeah,
If
but
you
that-
ever see youth court matter, a child abuse neglect, then you have to.
So maybe we need another law.
Oh,
Well, I got more. I mean, I think I'm so grateful to this committee, because there's not been a whole lot of interest so far in getting down in the weeds in this stuff. And that's what it's gonna take to make concrete changes, is really getting in the weeds. Mm-hmm.
So I'm reading the alert system through DPS. but they're-
What does it say?
I mean, we have a system set up through the state now, through DPS, that is an alert system. Started in 2002. But everything I'm seeing is warrant-based. So basically, there is a warrant for the individual that has the child. There's a warrant there, so there's nothing
For the child.
for the
Unless-
child.
To
No,
just get them
it's
out of a
simply
bad
for,
situation until you can.
yes, everything I'm reading says something about an arrest warrant or an active
Yeah.
warrant or
And
along those lines.
And for what I want, the DJ law, it would have to be a change because of the confidentiality. It's a suspected abuse or neglected child. For them to release the name of the child, the parents, the last location, would require a legislative change to confidentiality.
These are for serious cases.
Mhm. Like an Amber,
Yeah.
If I
Threat for imminent danger.
Yeah.
That's what it's for.
There is also a jurisdictional issue. And the reason that the Chancery Court in Stone County can do what they do is because the statute gives original exclusive jurisdiction over abused and neglected children to the youth court.
Are you talking about my kid, what I was talking about, my kids?
Yeah, that's why
Okay, he's switching
that's why
gears.
they get it and you don't. So you would, that jurisdictional change would be significant.
Well, I'm not talking about jurisdictional change, I'm talking about passing a law that gives chancellors access to my kids.
Well, if, I'm not arguing with you.
Yeah. I mean,
But-
just the information.
Chancery doesn't have jurisdiction over these abuses.
No, but I have jurisdiction over a custody case, and that custody child may have a history of abuse. You know how many times this comes
I know,
up in
I know.
guardianship clinics, every time.
And, you know.
And we have to ask Robert to come with his computer.
Mhm.
What is the downside of doing that? I don't understand. What is the argument for it being as it is now versus?
We can't be trusted, chancellors can't be trusted.
I think it's more confidentiality for children.
But if,
I
would assume that a judge
Yes, children were actually harming them.
has that kind of.
Yeah, has that.
Is there not an exception in the law that if a case is, if during the course of divorce proceedings, allegations of abuse arises, that chancellors do have jurisdiction?
Absolutely.
Yes, that is correct.
And is that normally
As
when
between parents,
okay,
Yeah, and-
between the parents that are in the divorce case.
yeah, if it comes up in chancery for the first time, I hear there's maybe a CPS history, I have to go through the procedure that I've just discussed. I have to enter an order, I have to send that written order
Okay,
to
I
youth
see.
court, and that
I see,
prolongs the
so,
case. I have to reset it
Okay.
till I get youth court records.
I see,
Whereas if I just had a read-only,
right,
I would think, I'm sorry, but like, there are victims, children victims that go through chancery court and their identity is protected. So it makes no sense that, for me, layperson, that they're, they can't be protected through chancery court when they're actual, they're part of court proceedings all the time. And they're, maybe their initials, whatever it takes.
I know that when I was in Constant, we had a case in Wiggins under the Chancery Court on a case, and I was able to get the youth court judge to sign an order allowing me to testify for Ellen and I that had worked that case to speak. When we went in, he cleared the courtroom. He said, there's a child involved in this, the courtroom is clear. So they treated that just like any other deal in Wiggins. Now, I haven't come across that here, but, because we do have a youth court here.
It operates the same way. I mean, you get an order allowing you to disclose that information, and generally chancellors are good about clearing the room when it's.
yeah,
when it's-
but once again, the problem is litigants can barely afford lawyers. And for me to have to enter an order, wait 2 weeks, it's resetting the case. When is that case gonna get heard? They're paying another lawyers for another court date. When, if I could make an immediate decision and get that history by just looking at a read-only computer, I don't need to change anything in that system. Just to be able to look at it and see that history.
Just, it seems to me that in order for you to do your job and do it efficiently, you need to have the information at hand.
Well, it's going back to CPS, and y'all don't have the tools to do your job,
right.
bottom line. And it's sad, and I'm doing this for a long time, and I had no idea that, that two things were not happening in Mississippi, and that's one of them. You don't have the tools that you need to adequately do your job, or your personnel. All right, do we have any more questions? Any from the panel, from the audience?
We need the next meeting.
I don't know, we voted to go 5 monthly, so 2 weeks?
August 2nd.
August 2nd.
And Judge Alfonso, you're gonna bring those changes on August
Yeah,
2nd?
I'm gonna probably call some of y'all to brainstorm the wording with me, because I wanna just make sure, I know that the sheriff had some specific.
So you wanna be put on the agenda again for August 2nd? Okay.
I do want to tell you, thank you, every one of you for taking time out of your day to come up here and sit. It is appreciated, and I know that you might be feeling attacked sometimes. It's not, it's just trying to understand it a little bit better.
Before we leave, I'd like to, Rob, if you would close us in prayer.
Father God, thank you for this wonderful day. Thank you for allowing this amazing group of people to come together and try to find solutions for a broken system. I think we heard here today that there's a lot of issues that need to be addressed. And I thank you for everyone in this room for having the heart to try to find solutions. Thank you for another wonderful day. Any day we can wake up and worship you and praise you is an amazing day. Please be with each one of us as we go about this weekend, we go about our day. Please watch over us, guide us, protect us, let your light shine through us, and that we may do your work. And may your will be done and not ours. Thank you for sending your son Jesus to die for our sins. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. Did everybody sign these sign-in sheets?
Thank y'all again for being here.
Who didn't sign here?
I probably could.